believe I am live after many tech difficulties, as damn usual. So I believe I am live. I should be going out on X and YouTube as well. If anyone's watching on X or YouTube, do send us a comment. I'm just going to monitor on the phone here. I've got a jalopy, a little laptop with smoke coming out of it, and some very minimal equipment here. I brought my decent camera with me, and the mic, as you can see, my trusty microphone. It's been with me about 6-7 years. Some of this stuff is new arm. I brought the cable with me. I brought a lot of stuff to the States actually, but that's new. So I can see I'm going out live. Let me just mute that damn tab here. I have no idea if my audio is coming through okay. We just go on to X as well. See if I'm there. Oh, loads of notifications right now as usual. I am going to go to my profile. See if I can see it. And I go to YouTube. So if anyone is watching, bear with me, folks. This is just a MacGyver job. Okay. See, I'm alive. I can see a screensaver. Oh, okay, great. So I seem to be coming through on light YouTube. I can see some lips moving. Ready for some feedback. And audio as well. Beautiful. I have no idea if I'm coming through on X. So thank you very much for tuning in, folks. I don't know how many people is going to be watching, because obviously I'm just kind of developing a US audience, and it's, you know, coming up to 9 o'clock here Central Time for some near Dallas. But obviously folks back home, it's 2 a.m. there now, I reckon. 3 a.m. Yeah, 6 hours behind. So we'll just have to go with it. So I'm going to just bring up my browser. The nightmare trying to get in here, and nightmare trying to get set up. Everything seems to be going wrong this week, tech wise, with lots of different things. Might be some interference on the mic as well. So now I'm going to go to desktop so you can see me, and I will swap to that. Now you can see the desktop and me. I'm going to have to wait till check that on the YouTube feed, so you should be able to see the desktop plus me in the bottom right. There we go. Yep, that's what I was looking for. Great. Just checking the lag on the mouse. 1 second now. There we go. Yeah, there's the mouse moving. So a couple of seconds, not too bad. I swear there's smoke probably flying out of this laptop here. It's not very powerful at all. Normally I do this stuff and I have a big monster desktop PC with all, you know, a million wires hanging out of it and 3 televisions, but here I've got one big huge telly, decent mic, this and my other bits and pieces. There's also probably a bit of interference on the mic, which I haven't been able to resolve. So let's bring on my website here as well, actually. Show some people some things there. So I haven't done much of the website. Just kind of as usual, having some difficulties with different bits and pieces, but the homepage is pretty much the same, except for down here I had this great image made up by someone. I just hired somebody on Fiverr.com. I sent them like the American flag, the Irish flag, you know, a good quality download from iStock or whatever, and sent them a decent photo of myself. And the photo is the one on my profile on X and in some other places, and it was a shot from a different angle, but obviously he put it into AI, and I sent him an image of the book as well, and this is what he came up with. So I'm delighted with it. I think it looks cool. I had no idea what he was going to do, and I mean, you know, you very rarely see me smile like that, but that's a great job, I think. So you click on that, it takes you through to the GoFundMe campaign there. So I thought that was nice. You know, it's nice on front and center, and front and center, and just on that home page. Just go back. Oh, get rid of that. So back to the website, and you've got a picture of the book at the bottom. You click on that, it takes you through to the Amazon page. So Amazon US, which I'm just getting used to, and that's great, you know. So just not much changes to the website, and then the rest is then. So anyone's new to the site, there's a dedicated page on the site about the book. So it's got some basic info about the book here, and just a little kind of introduction, bits and pieces there, in 5 languages, and in all different places you can get it. So the publisher's website is Omnia Veritas, but you can get on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, 8 Books, Books A Million, Powell's Books, LibrisBookshop.org, and you can see all the different versions there. So you've got English version, there's a front cover, and then the back cover, and then you go like that, you can see the other versions. So there's the French version as well, Spanish, Italian, and then the German version then as well, last but not least. So 5 versions, and that's the website. So what else have I got to show you? Yeah, so at the moment I'm in the States, for those who don't know. There I am going live, great, so that seems to be working okay. So for those who don't know, I'm in the States, and I come over here. Yeah, so I come over here on the 29th of August, and I spent about 4 days in Boston just to check that out. To be honest, I flew from Malta to Barcelona, and I hate flying, so I did like 2.5 hours from Malta to Boston, and then I spent a couple of hours there. Then it was like, was it 8 hours or something? I can't remember. It was quite a long stretch anyway from Barcelona to Boston, and I picked Boston because it's the nearest, you know, airport pretty much, to keep the flight time down. So long flights tend to kick the shit out of me. So I arrived there on a Thursday night, and then spent Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Boston just walking around. Spoke to a few people, gave out some business cards and told them what I'm all about pretty much. And then Monday then afternoon I flew to Dallas. That was an enjoyable flight. I didn't feel so tired. Can't remember how many hours, like 4 hours or whatever. I'm still getting my head around the scale of things here. It's unbelievable. A really nice flight, you know. I always pick a window seat so I can see all the countryside and stuff, and it was great. Then spent Monday night in the hotel. Tuesday came to my permanent accommodation. That was on the 2nd, so I've been here since, so kind of just over about 10 days or whatever, and it's been good so far. I've been trying to get onto as many X spaces as I can, and trying to do as many interviews as I can with different podcasts and such. I even turned up at a Republican meeting as well. I went to a local Republican meeting just to meet some American patriots, which has been great, to just, you know, introduce myself and just get settled in, and that's been really good. Lots of really helpful characters here. People are interested in my message. I think they understand what I'm trying to say. Obviously in the States people call it liberalism, progressivism. You know, those are the terms people use here to describe Marxism and so on. So you know, once I kind of get my message across, people they're resonating what I'm talking about. The X spaces have been cool as well. I've got a few more of those. Of a podcast tomorrow with Endeavour News in New Zealand, with the lads. That is in the afternoon at 4 p.m. Central Time, so I guess that's 10 p.m. Irish UK time, and I think it's 12 hours. It must be really, really late, or something for the Kiwis. I can't remember what it is, but massive time difference. So that be, and then Sunday I've got, maybe tomorrow night or Sunday, I've got another X space. Next week I've got a couple of podcasts lined up, as well as a big X space on the Friday with Kimmy. There's actually a post, she just sent up a post on my newsfeed there about that. So it's going well, and I'm hopefully trying to get things to snowball, and trying to, you know, build up some momentum. So every time I do an interview or a show, I'm hoping that people will throw suggestions at me, and I can just keep it going from there, because I will do them all day long if I have to. I love it, you know. I could do a few interviews a day, no problem. So a lot of the time I'm kind of twiddling my thumbs here and trying to fire out emails and stuff. But that's the plan going forward, get as many done as I can. So if anyone is watching, please do send me suggestions for podcast shows. Just send me the name, send me a DM on X, Send me an email if you want to get in touch via the website resolvingor.com, so you can see it on the screen just there. And just give us your suggestions for any sort of shows or whatever. And I mean, no, most of the mainstream media is going to be our liberal or kind of lefty leaning, but there are some outlets in the States I'm sure a bit more reasonable, so I would consider mainstream media professional media as well as like X Spaces and podcasts and so on, because it's all the same. It's all about getting the message out there. So they get into some other stuff. That's my kind of plan. So anyone watching, please do get in touch. Any sort of suggestions to help me kind of push the message forward and get more airtime, more time on the microphone. Radio as well. I a radio background, so I've been trying to get in touch with radio stations to try and get some airtime there as well. I think obviously the Americans, they don't know I'm here, so that's the thing. Once you get me on the mic, or once you get me speaking in front of a crowd, I'm away. I just need people to know I'm there, and that's all that matters really. So I think I'm going to switch back to desktop, and there's me in the corner, and then I'm going to go to my browser and have a look at the X feed. So just double checking what you can see. Yeah, right, so I'm down the bottom right, and then Twitter's the main screen. No worries. If anyone's watching on X, put something in the comments or whatever as well, if you wouldn't mind, just to see if it's coming through okay. I'm actually surprised that the streams haven't crashed according to vMix. Usually going through on X there's always some sort of an issue. But and any comments as well, if you want me to just give my comments on anything that's happened recently, let me know as well. Right, because like I was saying in the description, I'm just very, very casual this evening, nothing too serious. I'm just delighted that the laptop hasn't exploded. I mean, I'm considering just getting a refurbished laptop and spending like €500 or $600 or whatever on something second hand that'll do the job just while I'm traveling, because I don't invest in the big desktop if I'm not going to actually use it, and it's going to be a pain in the ass to sell again. So this is my feed. Wait a second. This is my comments. I want to just go down the. Actually, look at my notifications. So, this is the one I was talking about. I'll just click on this one here. So I'm just making sure you can see that. Checking on the phone. 1 second now. There's a terrible lag. Okay, yep. So this one here, I'm going to repost this shortly. This is by Kimmy. So there's her handle there at Kimagagal2. So it's Friday the 20th of September at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is 8 p.m. for me, which is going to be like 2 a.m. in Irish or UK time. So that's Kimmy's running one of the bigger spaces apparently. From what I hear, she was recommended to me and she agreed to come on to. My pal, one of my American pals, Jem, who's been great, giving me suggestions. He mentioned her stream, she agreed, or her space, she agreed to have me on. That picture's terrible. I can't believe that. I think X has thrown up the old picture. But anyway, so that'll be a good one. The bigger the better. So make sure if you go onto my page on X, make sure you set a reminder for that one and retweet the space, repost it, and then when the space is on the day, retweet the space. That should be a big one. And we're getting really good reception from the Americans about what I'm trying to do so far, and people further afield as well. So that should be a good one. I am just going to something else as well while I'm here. There's a Canadian podcast I was on last night with Chris and Jody, which is very good show, really good setup, great interviewers, very professional, and a good studio setup as well tech wise. So it's that one there, tfmreport.com is their website, run by Jody and Chris. Make sure you check out their website. You can follow them on Rumble. They told me they're off YouTube, or they've been banned or whatever from YouTube, so that's a good sign. So they're obviously doing spicy stuff. So make sure you go to their website, give them a follow as well. They're a very good setup. And the one tomorrow is this one. It's Endeavour News in New Zealand, so you can see that post there as well. And make sure you follow those guys on Twitter and give them a sub on YouTube. The links are there. So what else was I going to mention? So again, if anyone's watching, just send me a comment on YouTube or on X, and or DM if you want, and let me know how it's going tech-wise. So I'm going to give my thoughts on a couple of things I've been dealing with in interviews this week. So for anyone's new to my work, I've kind of made myself a specialist in a sense of Marxism and Marxist indoctrination, which is the number one thing we should be focused on in the West. It is the cause of all the problems we're dealing with. Obviously, we've got a chunk of the population in Western countries who are brainwashed zombies with this ideology, and they don't understand why I'm saying Marxism is the problem. So I deal with a lot of people with attitudes and stuff, dealing with egos, and no one wants to be told that they've been doing something wrong for years. So every time I go and do a space or I do an interview, somebody pops in with why aren't you talking about the international bankers? I just saw the comment on YouTube, Kelleher. Thanks very much for that. Cheers, I appreciate it. It's very late, yeah. Well, I'm a night owl myself by nature, so whatever time it is, don't be ashamed. It could be like 4 or 5 a.m. You don't have to apologize to me. But nice one. Thanks very much for that. Appreciate it. Good stuff. So no one wants to be told, right? This is a major problem, and I talk about this a lot, right? No one wants to be told that they've been doing something wrong, particularly if they've been doing it for years, right? And part of the reason why we're in this mess in the West, 3 a.m. That's nothing. That's for the amateurs, buddy. 3 a.m.'s nothing. You need to push it to 6. If the birds aren't chirping, it's not late enough. Get a bowl of cereal into you. Sorry. So, but I'm sure, have you all thought about this? Look, the fact that the West is collapsing, right? We've had all these problems. And there are now millions of people who are engaged with what's happening, who care about what's happening, but yet there hasn't been any major changes. And sure, like say in Ireland there was some, the more nationalist parties are getting, more votes, and people feel that that's progress, and they say more and more people are waking up. Yeah, that's an optimistic way of looking at it, but we haven't really achieved anything yet, have we? We haven't really stopped this globalist monster yet. So my point is that there's a lot of people involved, but the wheels are spinning and there's no traction, right? So what I'm suggesting is that there's plenty of courage involved in the mix. There's plenty of confidence. There's plenty of will for change. There's even plenty of intelligence, plenty of knowledge, and so on. But what's missing is that efficiency. It's too disjointed. The international freedom movement, or patriot movement, or nationalist movement, or right-wing movement, whatever you want to call it, anti-globalist movement, whatever that movement is, whatever you want to call it, it's lacking that bit of cohesion and organization and tactical awareness. That's what it's missing. So, as I often say, it's not a given that the goodies win, and that's not the way reality works. And unfortunately, the globalist system that we've been all up against for many decades now is very well organized, it's very well entrenched, and Marxist brainwashing makes people comply with it. And so that's all one unit, the mainstream media, the NGO, non-profit complex, the education system, the civil service, the police force, the government in most Western countries is all united as one unit. It's all together. And then, but the opposition force, the anti-globalist force that I described, is too disjointed and all over the place. And part of the reason for that is people's opinions, right? So I deal with this a lot in interviews, and I deal with this a lot when in X Space, people trying to challenge me and saying it's not Marxism, it's, you got it wrong, it's the international bankers, it's Zionism and the Jews, it's this, it's that, and they're always projecting blame into other areas, and they think that they're so smart when they're doing it because they've read a few books, they've read some articles or watched some videos, and the ego kicks in and they have it all figured out. But it's actually a logical fallacy, right, to say that other people are to blame for our situation. Because if you look at, say, a country like Ireland, Ireland's been ethnically homogenous for decades. It's changing in recent times, sure, but it's been with this group. There's been division within Ireland, of course, sectarian divisions and so on and so forth. But the point is that Irish people are the dominant group in Ireland. And the idea of Irish people blaming some other group or a faction or your George Soros types, for the situation that they're in is ludicrous. It's like, don't people have free will? Don't they have the ability to control their own thoughts? It's very Marxist to say that we are victims and to say someone else is to blame for what's going on. And again, back to the ego thing as well. When I put my argument forward, people assume there's things I don't know, and they want to start jabbering on about the Talmud or the protocols of the learned elders of Zion and all this shit I read 20 years ago, and they're trying to explain stuff to me, and I'm like, okay, yeah, and I deal with that shit a lot. People not fucking listening and assuming they have it all figured out. Now, okay, you could pose the question as well, who do I think I am? Do I think I have it all figured out? Well, I kind of figured it out by accident. It's not because I'm necessarily smart. It's more by accident that I figured out the way out of this mess. So it's not. This is not just hubris. Like, this is not just me dick measuring here, like people try and do with me. This is me just honestly saying that I think I've stumbled across the solution here to get us out of this mess, and I'm constantly dealing with people trying to get in the fucking way because of their ego problems. And the irony is they're blaming other people for the mess Western countries are in, while they themselves and their own attitudes and their own egos are part of the problem. That's one example, people with egos. Another example is actually, before I go to another example of that, sorry, I will go to that example first. So to back up what I'm saying, I argue in the book and in my work that all of the big so-called globalist agendas that have been destroying Western countries over the last few decades, like mass immigration, the trans ideology, the climate change movement draining the money from the economies, feminism, abortion, falling birth rates, the suppression of free speech, the breakdown of law and order, the totalitarian behaviour from the state, all of that stuff comes from Marxist thinking that Ireland needs to be forced to be part of an international globalist system. Now, it's not my fault if people are brainwashed and they don't have the knowledge to see that, but that's another part of the problem. People are resisting this solution I'm bringing forward because they don't see how all those things are connected. They don't understand about the class struggle aspect of Marxism, that all of those different sub-agendas, I call them, all come from Marxist activism, and they don't understand that the best way to derail the whole thing is to be anti-Marxist as best we can and to exterminate this ideology from society. That's another example. So the first one is people with egos getting in the way who think they know better, and the second example is people getting in the way because they don't have the knowledge and don't have the understanding. And that's why the book, I did put the book together. It's a solution. I already kind of have done the math on this problem, and I wrote the book just to hand it to people on a plate so they can absorb the information. And unfortunately, the thing is, people won't understand how important it is to read the book till they've read the book. So what am I supposed to do here? I have to do my best to try to convince people and join the dots, which is very difficult obviously in today's world because you have the there's all this information flying around and different opinions, and you've also got like different opinions in terms of ego, like I was saying, but you've also got people who are just on the wrong track, flooding the environment with different opinions and so on. They want us to talk about this other bullshit like American or Western imperialism and the deflection, and it's the internationalist capitalists and the bankers and all that shit, which are trying to knock us off track, which ironically is very Marxist, trying to blame their old foe capitalism. I actually dealt with someone recently talking about this. This character brought up the bankers and such. And I was thinking how, when you look at, again, it's another logical fallacy. So people will talk about a Bill Gates type or a George Soros type. Now, Bill Gates is a weirdo. No one should be listening to that man. He's an absolute nut job. He seems to be obsessed with population levels and vaccines and bioweapons and all that. That man shouldn't be allowed anywhere near any chemicals or anything that can be injected into someone. But say like a George Soros type, who is clearly an internationalist. He's an alumni of the London School of Economics, which is set up by the Fabian Society, so another Marxism contaminated institution. He is a billionaire. There's clearly something wrong with him, so he's a disturbed character. But and people would say he's funding all these groups, and so therefore they would say ipso facto he's got money, he's supporting these groups, so therefore ipso facto it's we're up against international capitalism here is the thing. Well, there's lots of people in the world with money who aren't internationalists and who aren't pushing all these agendas. But if someone is looking through things with a Marxian lens, that it's all about capitalism and so on, you'll find examples, and that's what happened with Soros in a lot of cases. A lot of people blaming capitalism as being the issue here. So it's just it's constant, these misunderstandings. A few of the other subjects off the top of my head, I suppose, right, you've got the elections coming up, so let's see what's coming through here. So it's just me for a minute. I'm going to go back to desktop view here, check my phone, see if that's coming through. Sorry, 1 second now. There we go, yep. Great, back to X, yep. So another one is coming up to the elections, right? Here's another kind of problem, people resistant to the message that I'm kind of bringing here, is the idea that elections are all just a big, show, that the left and right wing of politics are controlled by these men behind the curtain. It's all a conspiracy, and there's these elites pulling the strings, like the Rothschilds and all this stuff. And like I said, I went through all that stuff for years myself. Read a load of books about it, absorbed a load of knowledge. And the thing is, it plays into the hands of this globalist agenda for us to think that the left and right wing of politics are all the same, and that they're not, they're just controlled, and it's controlled opposition. The left and right wings are the same globalist New World Order bird, and there's no point talking about it. There's a lot of people in the world like that who they're in the middle. They're not picking a side ideologically or politically, and they think that they're being really intelligent by doing that, and they've absorbed the idea that part of it is laziness as well, because it's very easy for people to think there's no point looking into all that stuff when they don't have any knowledge about it. It's just laziness in a lot of people's cases, and that forms their worldview. It's pathetic, and there's loads of people in the world walking around with that point of view, that politics is a waste of time. Hello Off Grid, how's it going? Sorry, I just saw your comment there. Thanks very much, appreciate it. So I didn't think you would be up. I thought Kelleher was the only one awake at this time. So I don't know if that's you, Gav, but more night owls I see. You should be in bed. Get a bowl of cereal into you, put the pajamas on, get into bed. But like I was saying to Kelleher earlier, I can't slag you, because I'm not anymore, but I used to be a massive night owl. I'd stay up all night sometimes and be commenting on videos, and no shame at all. But yeah, so I deal with that a lot as well. I made a video about this. Patricia, how's it going? Great to see the comments. So yeah, there's a lot of people going around like that, and it's a shame, and that ratio, there's that ratio in America, in Ireland, and not the Western countries, where I kind of made a video about this a couple of months ago. There's an untapped resource of people in each country, right, who are not engaging politically because they're not interested in it. They're apolitical, or they're apathetic. They're not interested in anything that's going on, or they think it's one big conspiracy and the left and right wing is controlled, so they won't engage politically. That's terrible. We have to burst those bubbles and get people like that over to the nationalist side, and get them more engaged, you know, because I always say that nationalism is the way out of this mess. It's antagonistic to globalism, and the globalist agenda wants, you know, the opposite of, well, what we want is a people with nationalist mindset. We want to protect our people, we want to protect our culture, we want Ireland to be Irish, and other people in Western countries can have the same stance. And we want to control who comes into the country. We want a good quality of life. We want our kids to have a decent education where they're not brainwashed. We want the services to function. We want housing supply, etc., etc. These are all the things that a person with a nationalistic mindset wants. Now, globalism is the opposite to that. So nationalism is the solution. But there's lots of people in the middle of who aren't engaged, and we need to bring them over to our side. So I talked about the conspiracy theory types and people who aren't that interested and motivated. Other ones are spiritual types as well. I was like that myself when I was younger. You know, people interested in New Age beliefs and spirituality, who feel that they're above all of this kind of terrestrial globalist stuff, right? They presume that none of this stuff matters, and that it's a more better way to spend your life, you know, being absorbed in hedonism and these drifted away fairy ideas. People like that need a slap as well, because they're not engaging. You know, I mean, what else would you be doing with your life nowadays with everything that's been going on? This is like, everyone should be engaged in the struggle. So what I'm arguing here then is that there's a lot of Marxist brainwashing makes people into little mini globalists where they support globalism, and that group is not that big, right? It's hard to quantify who's brainwashed and who isn't. That group is not that big, but everyone else should easily outnumber them, right? But like I was saying, because it's so disjointed, it's the movement is still kind of spinning its wheels without getting some sort of results. Another subject I want to talk about as well is, this comes up as well, and this is part of a few of the kind of the bad influence problems we're dealing with, is something I talk about a lot, and I'm bringing up at Spaces a while, and this is it's kind of irritating, but I think it's part of the pacification of what's happened to us in the West. In the past, all throughout human history, when a group felt like it was under attack and when it was time to defend itself, there was no discussion about whether or not it was ethical to be violent or to use force. They just went ahead and fucking did it. And that's something that's missing nowadays, and this applies to Ireland and other countries as well, where you have a relatively handful, sometimes just a couple of hundred of police officers or whatever, able to keep ostensibly the whole country under control. This is, I think, a massive problem, and the string pullers, the people who are traitor globalist types running the country, can see that that's all it takes, you know, to stay in control, is some shields and some batons, you know, with the cops. And I personally think, and I've been saying this for a while, that the whole point of this freedom movement across the world is for people to come to the realization that when you're dealing with fundamentalist ideologues, the only thing that's going to work is force, because that's all that's ever worked with them in history. And I know as well as anyone the history of internationalism, of Marxism. They're never going to give up. They're never going to take a backward step. They're never going to say, I'm sorry, we're so sorry about that, we're sorry for being fucked up in the head. They're never going to, you know, it's not like you can win an election and they're going to all of a sudden admit that they were wrong and step down. This is not going to be over without a fight. And there's an old saying that you can vote your way into communism, but you have to shoot your way out. And my job is to get people to realize that what they're dealing with is international communism, first of all. People aren't even at that step. Never mind the step where they realize that we need to have a conflict, and conflict is inevitable, unfortunately. So this is, you know, very frustrating, because the clock is ticking. And as for Western countries, as everyone's been talking about, the demographic situation is changing. So in Ireland, the amount of migrants the migrant flows are continuing, and more people are being brought in from the outside. Many of them are males of fighting age, so they're being brought in, and it's clear that they, whether they're a criminal background or not, there are men of fighting age that brought in. It's clear that if there was going to be some sort of a conflict, they would be allied with the state, and it would be very difficult then. The Irish would have to deal with them as well as the state as well. So it's kind of like a makeshift army. But that window of opportunity to have a physical revolt is closing, and that's unfortunate. I personally think, where Ireland's concerned, what's going to happen is things are going to get a lot worse in terms of the breakdown of law and order, the clash of cultures, the racial tensions, and the amount of migrants coming in, that people will catch on eventually that nothing's going to work except having a physical response. But by then it's going to be a little bit too late, because the demographics are going to be different. Now, a lot of people look for the political solution, and I can understand the reason behind that. And people want to turn that banner off. People want to hopefully vote their way out of it. And there's that banner. Just get rid of that banner at the bottom. There we go. I have to monitor on YouTube. I'm all over the shop. So people are looking for the political solution and trying to vote their way out of this. But by the time you get nationalist representatives into the Irish Dáil, or the Irish Parliament for non-Irish people watching, by the time you get them in there and get people to start effecting changes, even more time might pass, and they're going to be outnumbered by the plethora of traitors as well. So from memory, the kind of people who are kind of going to be getting into the Dáil, or who did well in local elections, at least in the last election, people like Patrick Quinlan of the National Party, Gavin Pepper, who's an independent, Malachy Steenson, some of the Irish Freedom Party candidates and so on, they're going to be massively outnumbered by the contingent of traitors in the Irish government, who are all singing from the globalist hymn sheets. They're all following the Marxist programme for the breakdown of Western countries. So I would like to see it make a difference, but I don't know if that will be the case. So we'll just have to see what happens. And by the way, as well, it can kind of confuse people, because when I talk about having a physical response, people might think, looking at Irish history, that I'm talking about an IRA type situation. Well, first of all, even if we want to do that, the IRA was Marxist for most of their history anyway. But even if we wanted to do that, we wouldn't have the means in Ireland, because the state now is more sophisticated than ever. You've got armed police units and so on, and you wouldn't be able to do that. And remember as well that the IRA's campaign in Ireland was heavily supported by the Soviets, because the communists are anti-Western. British Empire, Britain represents Western power. The Soviets helped the IRA. That's how the weapons, some of the funding came from America, IRA sympathisers and so on, and the weapons and equipment often came from, our training was done in Africa. The weapons came from the Soviets, or Soviet sympathisers. So that thing can't be done again. So I'm not talking about that necessarily. What I am talking about is people having a kind of a critical mass of people who join together under a banner of a nationalist movement, a big nationalist movement, and turn up in numbers. I'm talking a few tens of thousands, and turn up in Dublin City, and pretty much say to the state, step aside. You know what's going to happen next. We're not looking for trouble, but you're not going to stop us either. This government needs to be toppled, and so it will. You can do that with massive numbers, but the numbers at the moment aren't scary enough. And the reason why the numbers there's not enough people who are engaged with nationalism is because Marxism has been in the mix, dragging people away from the solution. And the solution out of this mess is a nationalist, an ultra-nationalist, passionate attitude that has an aggressive edge to it, that's willing to use force. That's all that's going to work. That's all that's going to work, because that's all that's ever worked when you're up against this ideology. And by the way, you've got Justin Barrett, So for any Americans watching or whatever, he's kind of he's officially still the leader, but there was a leadership coup last year, kind of. But Justin Barr is the leader of the National Party in Ireland, one of the nationalistic or right-wing parties, one of the few of them, along with Ireland First and the Irish Freedom Party as well, and the Irish People, I think. And Justin had the idea of setting up a kind of I think it's on Scian ná Siúnta, I think, or Sciad ná Siúnta. It's like a league, pretty much, of people who are going to physically fight. Kind of modelled. It's no secret that Justin's a big fan of Hitler and the National Socialists. It's part of his identity, I suppose, on the Irish political scene. And he set up this group. It's going to be a physical group who are going to be, I presume, comfortable as a protection unit, pretty much. And I think that's a great idea. That's the only example I can think of someone even talking about this. And it goes to show that, I respect a lot of the characters involved in the Irish nationalist side. But Justin knows his history, and he knows the history of Marxism and what that's like. And that's where he got the inspiration from to set up this group. So I think that's a great idea, because another problem we have that ties into my work is that having say nationalistic events, conferences in Ireland is kind of unheard of on a big scale, where you get lots of people together and let them kind of bathe in that energy of nationalism and being proud of their country and being determined for change and so on. Having big events, whether it's in public or out in the street or whatever, you're always dealing with the problem of the cops, of course, but also the Antifa activists and so on, troublemakers, people trying to turn it into a brawl, which they've been doing for over 100 years, trying to derail their opposition. So protection unit is really it's something that could be very, very useful. And again, for something like that to work, Mr. Barrett needs bodies and needs people willing to believe in the cause and show up. And that kind of ties into my opinions, or my observation about this whole thing of people not willing to be aggressive and understand that aggression is needed. Because look, we're all in civilized countries anyway, most of us, most of the time, are want to be nice people. In many ways we want to go along to get along, and I understand that, that's a good thing, right? But when you're dealing with these brainwashed zombies, fundamentalist ideologues who can't be reasoned with, then eventually there comes a point where you're going to have to physically have a response. And I'm not saying everyone has to get out in the street and start swinging punches. That's not the way society works. It's mostly men of fighting age who do that, right? But because of the impacts of Marxism, and especially the effect of feminism and how it's eroded masculinity, it's confused the gender roles and all this, men don't have that kind of spunk they used to step out in front and start getting aggressive, because a few factors: because they're not as masculine as they used to be, because the brainwashing, changes in our diets, because the impacts of women as well. With some women, not all women, some women, many women have been brainwashed with feminist ideas. They've been brainwashed that they should take the lead more and compete with men, which kind of knocks the natural order out of things. And most of the time, when it comes to things being aggressive, women should just step back and let men take the lead and do their fucking job, which is to protect their country from attack from inside and outside. This is part of the destabilizing effect of the ideology. So, when it comes to using force to protect a nation, not everybody should engage in it, right? Because they're not physically suited, but they should be. But people who can should be supported by everyone else. And that's part of the problem in Ireland, because there's many people who are intelligent enough to understand that there's a time and a place for force, and they would be willing to step forward. But unfortunately, because a lot of other people have the wrong attitude and so on, these characters don't want to step forward, and then they're left hanging in the breeze. They'll get themselves arrested. They might be doing life in prison because the state will make an example of them for trying to rise up. So this ties back into what I said in the beginning. The reason why the West is collapsing is because of the attitude of the people within that country, and Ireland's collapsing because of the collective attitudes of people in Ireland, in the Republic, over the last few decades. Everything from being head in the clouds, wrapped up in your career, wrapped up in your personal problems, being brainwashed, being lazy, being ignorant, etc., etc. And while all that's been going on, everybody's been distracted and caught up in their own bullshit. This globalist monster has been taking these little steps forward, and now the water's starting to rise up around people's necks, and they're wondering what's going on. As I said in the beginning, some people are even blaming other sources. It's the international bankers, it's the Jews, it's, capitalism, or it's the British Empire, it's the Catholic Church, etc., etc. Everyone else is to blame, and no one seems to be taking responsibility for what's happening themselves. So I'll just go to my X feed here and just see if there's anything to kind of comment on. So anyone just joined in, or anyone just joined in recently, I'm really just testing out equipment tonight. I've got a laptop here, which is a very basic laptop. I've got a decent camera and my decent trusty mic, but everything else is a little bit, so I'm just making sure everything's going okay and there's no smoke coming out of anything. So let me just have a look down here. So September 11th is something they've been talking about recently. Let me blow that up for a minute. So I'll just waffle about this for a minute. So I don't know if audio will come through on that actually. I'll just go for it anyway.
Are they saying, I should turn it on because I'll call you back.
September 11th. Actually, that's that happened. Completely shocked by it. Actually, September 11th was the event that really started. I don't know exactly what's the blame for that, but what I know for sure is that explosives were used in the building. So
are they saying, I should conspiracy. I'll call you back.
Explosives were in the building, the same question where was the plane collapsed. You have to go see that there are explosives in all the buildings, and that constitutes a conspiracy because obviously there's several people involved. I don't really know who is to blame for that. I've heard all the theories. Some people think it was the Muslims managed to put people say it was a conspiracy and so much Jews and the excuse to go to the Middle East and so on. But unfortunately, what happens because of that, then we have a war on terror in Afghanistan and Iraq and everything. And that whole situation has been used by the Marxists as a time to bang that drum by Western imperialism, which they have to bang that drum.
Are they saying, I should I'll call you back.
Unfortunately, that whole situation post-September 11th helped to create that narrative that the West are imperial oppressors and so on, which the Soviets love to do to defend the dictation right for themselves. So that's really the most important thing to take from that nowadays. The rest is all just conspiracy talk. But you will hear the Marxists bringing up stuff like that, in Israel and so on. So don't really have much else to talk about. It's getting a little bit late here. There's an echo. Can't hear you over video. Oh, okay, sorry, okay. Great. Can you hear me now? Just checking. I shouldn't have played that video. 1 2 1 2. Just let us know if you can hear me now. Is the X video coming through? Great, thanks. Yeah, no worries. I knew I was taking a risk. Grand, thanks for the heads up there. But yeah, it's probably just some feedback. Grant, thank you. Yeah, yeah. So I'm dealing with a few things here, restricted internet as well as the computer is slower than Christmas. But thanks for that. But I was basically just talking about September 11th and stuff and how it's being used as a kind of a propaganda thing. But obviously everyone's talking about it because of um, the anniversary a couple of days ago. Give us a if you want me to talk about something at all, just send us a message there or whatever. If you want me to comment on anything that happened recently. So actually what's the name of that event? There's some event coming up I think it's closetheborders.com or something. I might check that on my phone. I don't want to stream that, but someone sent me a message about an event. It's called takeourborderback.com. That's it, yeah. There's like some big event coming up that I might attend myself. So I'm based down in Dallas at the moment. I'm just a few minutes from the airport, but I was thinking heading up to this I think they start in New York and then they go down to Washington, so that might be a good opportunity to go and meet some more American patriots and talk to them. So what I'm doing is, right, actually, and I'll put the serious cam on here for a second, right? So what I'm trying to achieve over here is not just obviously promote the book as part of it, but the book was always intended as like a platform to get me more speaking engagements as well, more interviews and so on, because what's happening in Ireland is obviously related to what's happening in the West in general, and my book is about why that's happening and how we can kind of sort it out. So it's all connected. So when I went to that Republican meeting a few days ago and I was speaking to the Americans, they actually gave me the microphone. I mean, I just turned up because I promised myself I'd go to a Republican meetup, and I looked on the website and there happened to be one just down the road. So I got an Uber up there and just walked in and introduced myself, start giving out business cards and stuff. And I told them, they actually gave me the mic for a couple of minutes, so that they loved it. Pretty novelty for them, someone being there, someone new being there. And I told them about what's happening in Ireland, and they'd no idea. They'd no idea even that we're dealing with the same stuff. And I said to them, I surprised them with my knowledge about the elections, American elections, and what they're dealing with, and they were kind of looking at me like I was from space a little bit. And I was saying, well, that's because it's international. The problems you're dealing with in the States are the same as the ones in Ireland, just some of the details are different. So so the point of being here and taking the risk coming over here was to raise awareness about what's happening in Ireland and not to promote the book, and then to cover the run up to the elections as well. I'd love to actually get down to Washington during some of that, to film that, make some videos about it. So I have a few objectives about being here. One thing I'm concerned about, to be honest, is funds and funding. Like, I've got some money to keep me going for a while and only focusing on this, like just focusing on like interviews and content creation. I don't have to be tied down and have a job and stuff, which is good. I can do that for a while. But I set up a GoFundMe, which is on my website, to allow me to be a bit more adventurous and fly around a bit more and kind of get the most out of it, because I'm going to be here. I'm going to try and get everything done the one trip. So that's the big thing. But no matter what happens, I feel like I'm making an impact here anyway. The Americans are really resonating with what I'm saying so far. Nice, I appreciate that, Patricia. Thank you, Tim Murdoch. Cool. I'll add him to the list. Thanks for that. I'll give him a shout as well. I do know that name. I do know White Rabbit Radio. So to be honest, I've emailed about 200 or 300 different podcasts over the last 6 months. And I kind of lose track of them all, but that's a good one. Thanks for that. I'll be giving them a shout as well. So, like I said, I will do this all day if I could. I am determined, and the reason why I'm determined to do this as well is because it's not knocking. Brilliant, thanks, Patricia. I appreciate that. Yeah. That's one way of doing it. I'll just make a note that you mentioned his name, and I'll let you speak to him first if you want, and you could name drop or whatever, and tell him where I am, what I'm up to, and then we can go from there. Or if you have an email address or whatever, I'll chase it down. So thanks for that. I appreciate it. So I think that there's no harm in me trying to do this, because we need all the help we can get, and I think that it's good to have allies outside of Ireland as well, so we don't feel like we're so enclosed and that we're just kind of relying on our own. It's like a kind of a goldfish bowl. I can do and say things in the States that I can't do or say back home, and I'm going to try to take advantage of that. So I know it sounds mad ambitious. Again, if some funding comes in, I get lucky, I'll really be able to put the foot to the floor here and go to more events and stuff. But I'm really determined to make it big, to get lots of attention here as best I can, fly the flag for Ireland, and that gets more eyes and more attention on what's happened in Ireland, and that will hopefully kind of help us, going forward. Because I know it sounds really lofty and ambitious, but imagine if the Americans turn it around, right, and the patriotic side starts to get control of the country again. They wrestle it away from all the Marxists like Kamala Harris and that pathetic excuse for a man, Biden, and all the other traitors in the country. If the Americans manage to wrestle control back and swing to the right more, the hope for me is that I'm hoping that the Americans will go back to the role that they had in the 20th century, where they used to often protect other countries from communism and so on. Now, interestingly, they helped many countries around the world in the 20th century, but not Ireland. They did have some involvement in what happened in the North and the peace process and stuff like that, but they didn't help us in terms of stopping the country getting contaminated with traitors and so on. But in their defence, it was hard to see it coming. Communism has morphed, and globalism is communism. But I'm hoping that it'd be great in the future if the Americans are able to help Ireland out, and that's what I'm trying to achieve here. Lofty as that is, understanding what's happened in Ireland, that we're in the same struggle to get control of their own house. They might be able to help us as well. That's part of it. The funding thing I mentioned is the reason why I only even brought that up is because I'm not really going to make any money from the book. I mean, it retails at like $35 here, €40 in Ireland, but I get 10% per book, and apparently I'm getting royalties next year. So I think it probably only sold a few hundred copies so far, if that. So obviously not getting any money from that. That's why I was talking about the funding and so on, just to be clear about that. But so again, if things go well in that department, then I can pull the rabbit out of the hat in terms of funding. I'll be going to Washington a couple of times. I'll try and get over to LA as well, because I know it's a different situation over there, and also go to the more of the southern states. So I'm based in Dallas at the moment, but I'd like to go to a book fair in Louisiana in a couple of months, and then some of the other southern states as well, including Florida. So we'll see what happens there. And I'll try to, now that I've got a few bits and pieces of equipment set up, I'll try to do updates like every week or whatever, or something, when I'm not doing interviews. And whoever missed at the start, X is the place to be, or my feed is the place to be, to see what I'm up to week to week. So I'm trying to pack out my schedule with interviews every week, with X Spaces and podcasts and so on. What the fuck? So look at the X feed here. The amount of nut jobs now. Hopefully the audio doesn't go. I'm not going to press play in the video here. Yeah, just let me know if the audio drops out. That looks like he's got his thing out there. He's hitting the back of the head with a shovel. Jesus. Yeah, it's more scraps. Here's Starmer. I like this photo here. Saw this earlier. That's amazing. Look at that. That is beautiful, I have to say. Imagine seeing that. That would be great. Well, I love beautiful scenery, but that would be something else. Go full screen there. Should get me out of the way. Am I still on the screen? I'll move now in a second. That is incredible. See if there's anything else here in the timeline. Nothing mad interesting really. I was on a Canadian podcast last night. We didn't get a chance to talk about Trudeau, but they obviously know what he's all about. And my theory on the Ukraine conflict is that I'm not saying it's a fake war. Right? I'm not putting on the tinfoil hat here. I think that it's, in my opinion, it's possible that war has been kind of not a fake war, but just that Russia is just kind of having this little, they started this little scuffle, and as you can see now, people like Trudeau and all the establishment across the West seem to be pro-Ukraine, whereas I think that all of it serves Marxism, right? I think it's a deception. I think that Western countries are going to be throwing all this money and military equipment into Ukraine, and it's all just going to go to waste, or the Russians are going to get their hands on it. And because I know in the history of communism, the communists are very good at swindling money and resources from other groups, including their enemies as well. So I think it's possible that whole, Zelensky's a cokehead and there's other stuff about him. I don't trust him, and obviously don't trust Putin either. Putin is allied to the Chinese and the North Koreans, so they're the new big threat to the West. So I think that Russia has taken a step west into Ukraine and to take a little bit of territory to get themselves a little bit closer to Europe, and then to drain all this money and resources from the West. And you have people like Trudeau and these are the traitors are going to push this agenda forward, because I think this is all laying the groundworks for World War III. And obviously I'm not saying that Ukrainians aren't dying, I'm sure they are, but these are just all regarded as expendable by the power players. So whether it's Russian soldiers or Ukrainian soldiers doesn't really matter. I think this is all part of a plan, and I suppose it is a conspiracy in a sense, but that's what communism is, so there's a lot of people who think that Putin's the good guy and that this is NATO encroaching on their space and so on. But that's an old Soviet talking point as well, that NATO's the bad guy and the Soviets are just protecting themselves. I'm sure there's no justification for Putin having to actually go in there and invade the Ukrainians, as far as I know. So that's just my thoughts on it. I'm open to that possibility that this is all kind of organized, because obviously China is determined to push out, but the Americans have them boxed in. So I think that Chinese are chomping at the bit to get aggressive and push out militarily, but I think the Russians are the ones who've started that process. And I don't think there's any point in pouring billions of dollars and euro into Ukraine in an unwinnable war, as well as throwing all the military equipment at them as well. Now this is fucked up. Look at this cat stuff. Oh my god. Apparently it started with the Haitians and all that. Man. What's he doing? Press ups on the cat? Fucking hell. Sick bastards. That's another thing with the breakdown of civilization, like people turn into animals. They start eating pets and stuff. Hey China, how's the colonization of Africa? The Chinese in Africa buying up more land and stuff. He's going after him with a stake. Jesus. Looks like a Shaolin monk almost, but just not as well trained. Oh, flying kick, nice. Fair play to you, buddy. What that's all about. The Chinese are buying up all the lands. Oh yeah, this is one for anyone who isn't Irish. There's apparently kids kicking off out of school. One of them had a blade. There's a lot of talk about this in Ireland. So my position on this is any migrant in Ireland caught with a weapon attacking an Irish person should be immediately shot on the spot. No hesitation at all. That's what should happen. I don't really know the details here. He looked like a. Some people were saying he wasn't a kid. He was like an adult male dressed as a kid, but it's hard to tell. Teenagers sometimes, like 15, 16, 14, 15, they have a big moustache on them, big tash. But yeah, I'm not gonna play that. Trump and all that. Yeah, there's a lot of people don't trust Trump. I think he's controlled opposition. Anything else interesting here? That's a great. See that profile there? If you're not following this guy, I'd highly recommend zoom in here for you. Gusano, at Mr. Gusano. Follow that guy there. I'm trying to looking at the YouTube feed here. Yeah, actually, I'll hover on his profile. Sorry, you can see his handle. Make sure you follow that guy. He's a Cuban. He's very knowledgeable about communism. He's always putting up posts about what happened there in the history and the state of the country and all that. He's based in the States now, and he's great. You know, I've picked up a few new things from him myself, to be honest, because international communism is so big. You couldn't possibly learn the history of each country. You know, like, I mean, I could, but you'd spend your whole life reading books, wouldn't you? You'd be bored out of your mind. But it's great when you people like this, local specialists who know their stuff. Definitely follow that guy, at Mr. Gusano. Yeah, at Mr. Gusano. What else are people talking about? A lot of people talking about COVID recently. Fair play to them, but I've nothing to really say about it. You know, obviously you can guess my position on it, but there's not really much more to say. No, watch it. I can't play that now. There's Keith Wood's post there about sanitation and waste management. Look at the state of that. You know, the West, we're starting to find out now in the West that we took for granted so many things in the course of our lives. Now, not everyone's the same. You know, some people poor background and they didn't have much. But the West in general, I mean, is going to find out how good we've had it in so many ways when you start importing people from these other countries now. Thanks to mass immigration, you're going to see everything starting to collapse. I wonder if that's going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back, is the quality of life. Going down the toilet. Joe Biden, can't believe he's still upright. I think the only reason Harris replaced Biden is because Biden, there's only so much drugs you can pump into someone, you know, even despite his age and so on. There's only so much drugs you can keep pumping until they start to collapse, their liver starts to break down and stuff. So it was just a matter of time before he was replaced. What did you think of the debate? I mean, I think it's terrible when you have the president, I know, someone who's I believe a genuine leader and potential president of the United States, having to have a conversation with a brainwashed Marxist. You know, you can't debate with crazy, but sure, that's the world we're living in right now. What else we got here? Not really much happening. Oh, look at that now. Speaking of devil, IRA volunteers in Ardoyne, Belfast, 1988. It's all about class struggle, getting the British out. You mean the elections? You think it's non-event? So there's a bit of a delay. I think that's what I was talking about. Yeah, I watched it when I was making dinner just for a laugh, you know, just to get some of the back and forth to see what they were kind of saying. So Trump, you know, I mean, I haven't met the man, and I don't like, you know, I can't condone him or condemn him or whatever, because I don't know enough about him. But he certainly represents the more patriotic side in America, and you know, whatever we think about him, that's what he represents. So again, it's all about Marxism and trying to oppose that. Marxism is death. Marxism is national death, death of the nation. So you need to get someone in here who isn't going to do that. So that's why I'm interested in it. The American elections is going to be important for the West in general, because it's all about whether or not the Marxists are going to stay in control. the Americans can't turn it around, that's bad news for the rest of us, fortunately. Not much else here. What the fuck is that? This is a comedy skit or something. It's supposed to be comedy. Are they Aboriginals of India or something? Mad. More stuff about Haiti. Actually had a friend randomly who was in the Dominican Republic recently, just next door, so they share the same island, wherever it's called, can't remember the name, but it's split in half, and the Dominican Republic is the nice half thing, and Haiti is like fucking hell on earth. It's the border, and I think part of the reason why Haiti is collapsing is because again, because the Marxist influence. I don't know, it was this at some point in the 1800s or something, where they actually kicked all the French out, or all the Europeans out of the country. And surprise, the country started to fall apart. Similar to what happened in parts of Africa as well. They had the bright idea of getting out all the foreign invaders, the European that is, and the country just collapsed. Yeah, not much going on here. Anyway, it's getting a bit late here. I think I'll pack it in. If anyone's still watching, thanks for the comments, Patricia and Keller. Appreciate it. The tech stuff and bits and pieces and all that. I will probably do another one next week at some stage. I've got some stuff to talk about. But yeah, I'll get in touch with you, Patricia, if you're still listening about that. I'll chase up that lead with Tim Murdoch and trying to get on his show and all. But yes, anyway, folks, enjoy your day. Anyway, I'm going to wind down for the evening, and I'll chat to you soon. Take it easy.